What's going on again, everyone? Welcome back to another episode. It's your boy Uche. Today I want to talk about the concept of family, or at least the title of family. And the reason why I wanted to take my time to talk about this particular topic is because just as the title of friends, I've noticed that the title of family has been given to a lot of people who are not as deserving. So I wanted to take my time to come out here to describe what family is and what family is not, and why it is extremely important that you're picky with who you're giving that title to, so you don't give that title to people who are not deserving of it. Now, like I've always said, I'm a realist and also a hardcore pragmatist. I do understand that this word is not as terrible. It's not all dark and gloomy, but at the same time too, this word is not entirely bed of roses. There's a lot of horrible things going on around the world. And when you look around and you don't see some of these terrible things that are happening all around the world, it could be as a result of your privilege, the family you've been born into, or maybe even the privilege of the part of the world you're born into or you live. I know that people here who live in the Western world are to a certain extent shielded from some of the mess that's happening all around the world, but it still does not negate the fact that the average human being outside these Western privilege walls is going through a whole lot of mess. So my point is, yes, the word may not necessarily be as terribly dark and gloomy. It is also not a bed of roses. There's a lot of mess. There's a lot of malarkey happening all around the world. And if you're unfamiliar with some of these things, maybe because of your privilege or maybe because of the part of the world you live in, all you have to do is just go on Google, find out what's happening in the Middle East, what's happening in Africa, what's happening in Latin America, what's happening in Asia. There's so many people all around the world who are going through a lot of hardship. And I don't mean to sound like a pessimist. Once again, I'm a realist. I do believe that a lot of this hardship that the world is going through is going to actually get much worse, much worse. But afterwards, it's going to get much better. It's going to get so much better that the world will be completely unrecognizable. And there's a much deeper philosophical and spiritual reason as to why that is. And I'm not going to bore you with that detail today. That's going to be another episode in the future. Again, like I said, a lot of horrible things are happening in the world, but it's only going to get much worse. This is just the beginning, and it's going to get much worse in order for things to get much better. And when things do get better, the world is going to be so unrecognizable. But like I said, that's a whole nother conversation. The point is that the average human being in America, in the Western world, but especially outside of the Western world, is going through a lot of hardship as of today. And if you're not familiar with some of the horrible things happening around the world, consider yourself truly privileged and truly blessed. Now, on top of all the horrible things happening all around the world, mental health issues is at an all-time high here in America and beyond. I'm talking depression, anxiety, addiction to opioids, drugs, alcohol, sex, PTSD, suicidal ideation, and so much more. There's so much negativity happening around the world. And even on top of that, cost of living has increased so much. Even here in the West, a lot of people who are much older will tell you that when they were younger, their dollar could go so far. There are people who would buy homes for less than $100,000. But today, homes are basically unaffordable for most people within my age range. Unless if you're blessed to have a really good job, a really good career, or if you know somebody or somebody who is influential and powerful knows you. Cost of living has increased so drastically, and unfortunately, income has not increased by much. A lot of people are barely making ends meet. The truth is that a lot of people are not as financially stable, especially here in the West, because America, for example, has a credit system, so it's easy for a lot of people to look like they can afford things because you're borrowing, it's credit. A lot of things that people are purchasing, they're not paying cash for it. It's all credit, you know, from plane tickets for vacations, mortgages, car notes, and so on and so forth. A lot of things here in the West are borrowed because a lot of people cannot afford it because their source or sources of income cannot necessarily match the increase in cost of living. It's just a hot mess. And like I mentioned earlier, addiction to opioids, drugs, alcohol, and all kinds of malarkey is at all-time high because a lot of people are so desperate to numb their pain. Once again, my point is that there's so much going on all at once. A lot of us were going through it. I mean, just walk out your door. It doesn't matter where you're at. Go into a public space, the mall, the airport, a park, or whatever it is, and just look at all the faces you see. Men, women, black, white, gay, straight, doesn't matter, irrespective of their nationality, social status, and so on and so forth. Every single one of us have struggles that we're dealing with. Just like our faces differ, our struggles differ. There are people who are dealing with depression. There are people who are dealing with anxiety. People who are dealing with both. There are people who are dealing with loss, maybe like a breakup or a divorce. There are people who are dealing with rejection. There are people who are dealing with homelessness. There are people who are dealing with terminal illnesses. There are people who have people in their lives who are dealing with terminal illnesses. There are people who are mourning. There are people who are dealing with disabilities, some of which may not be as obvious as we may think disability may be. The point is that every single human being, we all have struggles, irrespective of who you are, but it's still our duty to be able to navigate through those struggles, to be able to get to that finish line. Every single one of us, if we're able to get to the very end on our deathbeds, and we have the opportunity to look back at our lives and see that in spite of all our challenges, irrespective of what those challenges may be or may have been, we were able to navigate and finish strong. That's a true blessing, especially considering that some of these struggles can get so heavy to the point that they can tip us over at any moment. And I do believe from a much deeper spiritual perspective that a lot of these struggles, all these struggles actually have been perfectly created for us. These are struggles that we can handle individually. This is one of many reasons why I've talked about why you should never be jealous of somebody else's life, especially when you see the highlight reels online, because you don't see the dark side of their lives. Again, your life is perfect. Struggles, blessings, lessons, all of it is perfect. But it's still our duty to be able to navigate through them. Unfortunately though, sometimes some of these struggles can be so heavy to the point that they are almost so overwhelming and they can be so crippling. And even more sad is that unfortunately some people have succumbed to suicide as a result of some of these struggles that are so heavy and so crippling. These are the times when family is extremely important. It is the family's duty to catch you when those low moments come knocking. This is because true family exudes something I call home. Now, the reason why I say all that is because in the midst of all the things that we're going through, both individually and collectively, especially during our low moments, even most especially during our lowest moments, those moments that can tip you over to the edge of suicide. When you think of somebody in your life, irrespective of genetic connection or not, and that person does not feel like home in your spirit, then that is not family, and that's okay. I know this concept may be a little bit contradicting to a lot of people, especially because of some of the things that we were taught, that family is everything. Family is your mother, your father, your brothers and sisters, people who are related by blood. But the truth is, true family feels like home in your spirit. And as you navigate through the world, both the ups and the downs, and when you think of the people in your life and they don't feel like home, they don't feel like a safe place, then it's not family, irrespective of genetic connection or not. And that's okay. That last part, that's okay, is one of the biggest things that a lot of people struggle with. Even me, myself, I struggled with it for such a long time. Again, because these are the things that we were taught growing up, especially as an African who was born in Africa, raised in an African household. It's a very tight-knit communal system, and these are things that I had to deconstruct in order for me to break free of some of these malarkey that I was indoctrinated with to maximize my life as Uche. Hence why I'm here to teach others. So if you have someone in your life, whether that person is related by DNA or not, and you don't feel like you can confidently and comfortably share personal information, honestly and vulnerably share personal and deep information without them judging you, then that person is not family. Family always provides a safe space. If you know someone in your life, irrespective of DNA connection, that if you were to share something personal with that person in private and they will eventually use those words against you in the future, then that is not family. Family always protects. If you have somebody in your life who doesn't see you or hears you out, they're always eager to speak over you and your relationship with that person is always all about them, then that is not family. Family is always present. Like I said, family is not always the people you share genetics and DNA with, and that's okay. And like I said earlier, that last part, that's okay, that's something that even me, I struggle with for such a long time. But believe me when I say it's okay. And shout out to therapy, but it wasn't until I started to realistically see the patterns of this human reality and then start reacting realistically and pragmatically that things turned around. And this is why I do what I do, to teach people that you can find your own path. As long as you're intentional to study the human reality and find those patterns that work for you and follow them and react realistically and pragmatically, you too will be okay. Because everything you need to survive this life is within you. So if the word is telling you that someone is family just because that person is genetically connected to you, yet within your spirit, that person does not feel like home, then it is extremely important that you recognize the pattern that that person is not family, and that's okay. Then you react realistically and pragmatically to what is, because it is what it is. You know, there's this famous quote that a lot of people like to misquote. It goes, blood is thicker than water. But the truth is, that is not the correct quote. The actual full quote is, the blood of a chosen covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. This means that just because someone is related to you by the waters of the womb does not necessarily make them family, and that's okay. Sometimes family is intentionally chosen in spite of genetic connection, and that's okay. Let your spirit lead you to family. Let your spirit lead you home. Uche, peace and love.